It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Hi, everybody. It's Lexi here with Lexi's Wellness Warriors, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to my friend, Nikki Chang Palace. She's here with us today. Hi, Nikki. And Nikki and I we were just chatting, as usually happens before I start the recording. I get to chat with my amazing friends before we get this rolling. And we were just trying to figure out, it's been quite a long time since we met. We met back at the Foothills Camera Club. It probably was about 12 years ago. Hey?
Yeah, it has been a long time. Yeah.
But it's just been fantastic. And you know, I'm thrilled to be chatting with Nikki today and sharing her with all of you, because you know, Nikki is just an incredible human, great energy, such a wealth of knowledge and a breadth of knowledge. And I found that, you know, Nikki and I are friends, and we work out together, and we've had some good conversations. But I love that Nikki, you know, her main thing is helping. I'm just going to read your tagline, right? Is helping overwhelmed business get clarity, direction, and results. And she's an award-winning business strategist, a speaker, an author, to add on to that, also an incredible photographer, just a wealth of knowledge. Yes, she's got a phenomenal book, which I'm going to ask her to tell us about as well. And so I wanted to just kind of share Nikki with all of you and have her tell us a bit about her story. And I've had the pleasure of having Nikki work with me and coach me through going from this big picture, of course, and kind of trying to whittle things down to really get clear with my message, my mission, and my direction. So yeah, I think that's probably something that you see a lot of, is people have this big picture idea, and it's trying to get them to really focus in and what is it you really want to say. Right. So with that, I'm going to leave it with Nikki. We're going to ask you to kind of start off and tell us a bit about how you got into what you're doing, and some of the things you've learned along the way, and things that perhaps you've noticed as you're coaching people and working with people.
It's funny how you say that, Lexi, about how I helped you hone things in, you know, and get clarity and I guess put together a system, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of people know this, but I'm an engineer by training. I have an engineering degree, right? And I'm sitting here going, you know, because I was in university, I graduated with a degree, and I looked at my husband and I said, you know what? This is really boring. And I said, I cannot see me doing this the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think that in itself, it's really being true to yourself and listening to yourself as to, is this even the right path? I mean, Lexi, I know you deal with a lot of students, right? And they don't know what they want to do when they come out of high school, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, the logical step was to go into engineering, right? Yeah. And because, you know, I was good in math and sciences and all of these things, but I as I went into it, I realized this is not what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so after I graduated, I went into the business world, into the corporate business world. And in fact, I stayed there for close to 25 years. Mm-hmm. And it was like, you know, like I worked my way up the ranks, ended up as, you know, in senior management for an oil and gas service company. Hey, being Calgary, what do you expect? Oil and gas, right? And so I worked my way up there until one day, you know, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, Lexi. It's just like, I got to go do something different.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. And that's what happened to me. And I'm sitting here going, I've been with the same company for 16 years. And I'm like, what do I want to do? So I said, you know what? Forget this. I'm retiring. I worked hard. Time to retire. And so I literally walked out the door and I retired, not having a clue what I wanted to do. I did some of my photography. Remember, you were talking about the photography. Mm-hmm. So I did some of the photography until one day somebody came up to me and they said they got laid off. And they said, Nikki, I want to take the severance package and I want to start a business. I know exactly what I want to do. I have no clue how to start a business. And he said to me, he said, you've got all this business experience. Will you help me? Famous last words. Sure. Why not? I have nothing better to do with my time. I'm sitting here thinking to myself now, what did I get myself into, right?
Mhm.
And then 2 months later, somebody else came up to me and said, Nikki, I've been in business for about 2 years now, and I'm not attracting the type of clients that I really want to work with. And that's when I stood back and I looked back, and it was like the universe was talking to me. The heavens were parting, and the angels were singing in the back and said, this is what you need to do. Right. And that's when I recognized that the corporate business knowledge that I had was not common knowledge among the small business community.
Mhm.
So that's when I started working. I work exclusively with small business owners, coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs, anybody, with maybe 3 or 4 employees maximum, and helping them build that foundation for their business. And that foundation, a lot of it starts with getting clarity on what you do, who you serve, and how you're going to articulate it. How do you position it in the marketplace? And let's try to get all of this in place before going forward.
Mhm.
Right. And that's what I do. And then what happened was I realized that when people start a business, they would, they would go onto Google. I don't know. Have you ever go onto Google, how to start a business, right? and that's when I recognized, when you Google how to start a business, they give you a lot of information about sales and marketing. Yes, that's very important. We have to understand how to sell. But I also recognized that there were a lot of other pieces that people didn't recognize that were all part of starting a business. And so what I did was I interviewed 9 experts in their field, and put it all together into this book called Putting the Pieces Together, Your Survival Guide to the First 5 Years in Business, right? So there were so many pieces, like from business insurance. A lot of people don't understand, do I need business insurance, right? Why would I need it? When would I need it? And I have this one chapter that starts with, congratulations, you made your first sale. Now, how are you going to take payment? So I interviewed somebody who's a credit card processing person, right? It's so confusing. What do I need to do when it comes to credit card processing? What do all these rates mean? And what do all these things mean? And I put it all into one book. And that's what I did. And that's kind of how I got started in helping people get that clarity on what needs to be done. What is the core foundation for them to be successful with their business?
Mm-hmm. And I think too, like Nikki, as you were saying, right, it's as an engineer, I would imagine like being able to see how the parts fit together and how everything works. And so again, I think that's the thing, as I was mentioning in the beginning, it's, you get excited. You're so excited about what you want to do. You think, this is it. This is my passion. I want to get into it. This is my business. But there are so many, I know for me, this because we've worked together, but the hamster's on the wheel, and I'm thinking, oh, but what about this? And what about this? And there's this and this and this. And it's fantastic to be passionate about so many things and have so many aspects and facets. But as you had mentioned to me, it's like, okay, but we need to bring this in so that we're really getting to your niche and who is it you really want to help? And what are we going to do to make that very clear and make it so that people know what you're offering? Because again, having all of these things we can incorporate in there, but we need to have a very clear start and a clear basis so that people, it's not a case of you can't see the forest for the trees, which I would imagine is, I know when I was describing to you, I felt like it was just all of these things were coming, and it was, okay, we need to just narrow this down.
Focus, yeah.
And applies really well to life in general too. I mean, not just in business, right? As we're talking right now, it makes me think of when I'm working with my older students and helping them with writing. When they're writing an essay, it's like, okay, you've got all these ideas and all this stuff, but let's start. Let's get a clear starting point and a clear path, and let's weave this all together to make this beautiful story or this beautiful business and this beautiful journey. But we need to kind of, it's not just this throw it together willy-nilly. There is a path, and I think that that's what I appreciate about you too, is you're very patient, and the way that you explain things is very it's very clear and understandable to someone who's not got that business background, which is so important as well, right? So yeah, definitely.
Well, one of the things that I want to kind of add to that is a lot of people think that, well, when it comes to marketing, it's like, can you give me the formula?
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me this, like, what are the steps to get there? Well, here's one of the most, the misconceptions is they think that if they fill out the form, that they're going to get the answer at the end of the form.
Mm-hmm.
You will get one answer at the end of the form, but what they don't realize is when they're starting out, and especially if you don't have clarity on who you serve or what your product is even going to look like, it's a process. It's not a fill in the blanks and get the answer. It's a process that evolves over time. So just to give you an example is everybody knows I love food, right? They see my around the world food tour, right? Because I'm a foodie, right? Now, when it comes to cooking, let's say we're going to make soup. We're going to stick all of the ingredients into the pot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, sure, you can have the soup right away. However, if you let the soup simmer over a period of time, would you not agree with me, Lexi? It's going to absorb the flavors and it's going to taste much better, right? I make this one soup. I make this one seafood soup. My husband keeps reminding me it tastes better the next day. I don't even know why we even eat it the first day. I should just cook it and stick it into the fridge and then eat it the second day. But the thing is it's the same thing when we're building a business and structuring it in a way it is a process. It takes time for all the ingredients to come together, for the flavors to simmer and ultimately burst out in the perfection that it was meant to be, right? It's not something that happens overnight. I wish it was. I wish there was a magic wand, but no, it's a process. And which each stage of the process, you get that much smarter and that much better. It's the same thing with the kids in school, right? You're not going to teach them great, K to 12 in one night.
Yeah.
That isn't happening. It's a progression.
And I think again, it's having you as the expert and the coach, but also because it's a really a craft and a talent to really listen to your clients, get a feel for their personality, the way they kind of envision things, and then to help them get to where they want to be, but to do it in a way that it's like, okay, so now you've got to figure out basically while on the fly when you're first meeting someone, how am I going to explain this to you? There's a lot of skill to it. And there's a lot of, as you mentioned, it's not just this thing where it's like, okay, I'm going to do this and here we go. There's a lot more thought and longevity in the process of getting to where you want to be, for sure.
Yes. Now, one of the keys to success for anybody starting a business or starting any new project or new venture, the key is being open-minded and listening to what others are saying.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest keys. So it doesn't matter how much experience you have, is sometimes we're too close to our own stuff.
Yeah.
And we just can't see past it. The answers may be right there.
Yeah.
We're just too close to it. We can't see it. It's just like the book, right? I wrote the book. I should not be the one editing the book.
Right. Right.
Right. And that's the key thing, when it comes to business, it's getting other people's perspective. It's saying, hey, what's going to work? What do you think, doing a lot of market testing, market research. Can I share with you a fabulous example of this in action? Okay.
Yes, please.
So one of my clients, she is a digital marketing person. So marketing is her jam, right? This is her stuff, right? And she was putting together a program, and she needed to come up with the name of a program. So, she worked with me, and we came up with about 5 names. And we took those 5 names of the program and we put it to a poll. And in the poll, she came back to me. She says, I got the results of the poll. And I said, well, which one was it? What did they say? She says, it was overwhelming majority. Everyone who answered the poll, who was her ideal target market, right? All picked one title. And I said, okay, well, what's wrong? Why are you so upset? She said, it is also the title she liked the least. And so I said to her, okay, I see. I said, are you trying to sell the program to you or to them?
Yeah.
She's like, okay, I get your point. It's being open.
Yeah.
Open for feedback. And, giving it a different perspective. See, she didn't see that, because she was thinking in her mind, everybody else is out to lunch. But it took an outsider like me, because marketing is her area. So it took an outsider like me to remind her she's not selling it to herself.
Right.
Such a simple concept. And she had forgotten that.
But I think it's like you said, right? Get out of your own way, because that's exactly it. We see things a certain way and we have in our heads, well, yeah, this is what I mean. That's great that this is what you mean, but the general public, or who you're appealing to, may not understand that that's what you're meaning. And I think, yeah, definitely, it's that any suggestions as the business strategist and coach for us is, when you're asking questions, it's okay, well, what about this, and what about this, and tell me more about this. It's not meant as a critique. Those questions and those deeper questions are meant to tease out, to really get to your why, because I think that's a lot of it too, Nikki, is a lot of times when people say, what's your why? We've got kind of, some people have this superficial, what their why is, this little thing that they've got sorted out. But really, when you ask the deeper questions, or you really take the time to pull it apart, you see that, in fact, oh, I thought this was my why, but that's actually not my why. And this isn't the message I want to give. And so it does take that critical eye from someone outside, because again, like you said, if I think about it, going to a therapist, they might ask you questions, and yes, you might already know the answer, but you just don't realize it because you're again in your own way. So having that outside person to kind of help you navigate and get you to that point, it is huge. It makes a big difference, and it's definitely worth it. Yeah.
Because I had one client, she was struggling with trying to find her ideal client, which is, what is her niche?
Yeah.
And as we were going through the process and she started talking about her health, then I saw her get so super excited. You know how your voice gets really excited and everything like that? And then I looked at her and I said, why is that not your niche? She's like, I don't know. Like, she didn't even notice that she got excited. But it took somebody like me from the outside to say, oh my gosh, you were so passionate about what you just said. You didn't hear yourself, right? That's why a lot of all the programs that I have are all built around collaboration. So yes, there is a teaching component involved in a lot of the programs that I have, but that's not the secret sauce for success. The secret sauce for success is running the ideas by other people and saying, hey, does this work for you? Right. And then they'll say, I'll give you the example of the 60-second introduction, right? You'll go to a networking event, you do a 60-second introduction, or you just introduced yourself to somebody and you're sitting here going, you have no idea whether it connected with them or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you're sitting here going, okay, well, that didn't work. I should change it. Right? What, isn't that a natural reaction, Lexi? Let's change it.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, what do you change?
Yes.
Right? What do you change? Okay, we know this website's not working, or my 60-second introduction is not working, or whatever it is, this flyer is not working. What do you change?
Mm-hmm.
That's why when you have a community of entrepreneurs who understand what you're going through, you can say, hey, does my 60-second introduction resonate with you? And we might sit here and go, you know what? It was fabulous until you got to this point, then you lost.
Yeah.
Now you know what to change and what to keep.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because I think the human nature and tendency would be to throw everything out, and there's value. There's probably some really good value and some good stuff in what it is. It's just, as you said, running it by some other people, getting that constructive, helpful feedback really makes a difference. Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
So tell me a bit more about your programs. Let's chat a bit more about the programs that you offer.
A lot of the programs that I offer are around the marketing side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about helping people get the foundation for their marketing. Mm-hmm. So it's really around two key challenges. The first challenge is around, out of all the different ways I can market my business, which one is the best one?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because sometimes what works for one business owner doesn't work for the other. And that's because either they're at different stages or their audience is different. And there are so many factors as to why to choose specific marketing strategies. They're all great, but they might not be the right one for you. It depends, right? And the other thing is, a strategy that works for you today might not be the right one a year from now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you're at a different stage. So my programs are designed around that one question out of different marketing strategies, which one is the best?
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is around what to say.
Right.
That's your 60-second introduction. That's on your website. That's your flyers or whatever, your social media profiles.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say? Because if you go out and you implement all of those, let's say Facebook ads, right? We take an example as Facebook ads. You can spend a lot of money on Facebook ads. The thing is, if your message is not connecting with people,
yes,
it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not attracting the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't take action.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess that's the thing too, is if someone has started their business and they're finding there isn't much interaction, there's not much traction, there's all this stuff. I think that, again, that's where coming to you would really help us to see, okay, let's look at these what would I say? I'm trying to think of the word in English right now, but let's look at all these leaks or all these where we need to fill that, where the gaps are and what we need to do to kind of change this around. And I like what you said too. It's a thing. I think that it's an evolving and growing process. It's not this static, stagnant thing where it's like, okay, I've got my business, this is it, and that's going to be it for the next how many years. It's, again, evolving and changing based on you and the business and what's going on as well, right? So I think
going back to being open and listening to what is happening.
Right.
Because I mean, you know what, Lexi, I will confess, I was one of those people where I thought, when I started my business, let's put up a website, let's put up the open for business sign.
Mm-hmm.
And they will come.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Well, and I think what I like too is really your advice of, okay, how are we going to separate you from the pack? How are we going to make you unique and make you different? Because I know, again, in sharing when we had talked about my fitness business and what's going to there's so many fitness people out there. What can we do to distinguish you and make you different and separate you from the pack? And I think that's the thing too, is again, having you to help us figure that out as well, right? Because I think that one of the best exercises was also, okay, Google personal trainer and fitness instructor, and let's chat about this. And it was really eye-opening. And also my eyes were cross-eyed at one point, because it was like, oh my God, there's so many, right? But it's so true.
This is what happens when there are so many, by the way, because that fitness instructor,
Yes.
I will share with you my own personal story, is I was diagnosed with high blood pressure and the doctor wanted me to go on medication. I said, nope, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this naturally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to lose the weight. And after about 6 months, I realized I really needed help. Right. I think I made maybe a couple of pounds, like in 6 months. I said, I need to find a fitness trainer. So I did exactly what you said, Lexi. I went onto Google. I Googled fitness trainers.
Yeah.
And I'm going, oh my gosh, there's too many. And then I would go to a meeting, and then I meet so many fitness trainers.
Mm-hmm.
This is what happens when there are too many choices. The brain shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, nope. I'm like, I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I don't want to look for a fitness trainer. This isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
I'll share with you how I did find my fitness trainer. Is somebody, I met this one fitness trainer, and he said to me, Nikki, I specialize in heart patients, people with who have had strokes and heart attacks and high blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
That was a no-brainer. I was working with him, and it didn't matter how much he charged.
Yeah.
I was working with him.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that
was the pain point. And that was the thing that you were looking for. Maybe not knowing it at the time specifically what the title would be, but I think again too, like you probably felt like, yeah, this is it. This resonates with me, what he's just said.
Exactly. By the way, I did go from a size 14 to a size 2 in 1 year. And my blood pressure was controlled for 7 years until it decided, nope, I'm not listening to you anymore.
Incredible. That's incredible.
I'm like, yeah. But the thing is it's that journey of, understanding. And here's the other key. It's understanding how the consumer makes decisions.
Yes. Because there is a psychology to it, isn't there?
Yes. And it's even in the words that you choose.
Mm-hmm.
Words that you choose. Do we have time for me to share another story?
Yes, please do. Yes.
Okay. So Lexi, we're baking a birthday cake.
Excellent.
Okay. So we're going to make the cake itself, right? We're going to make the cake. The cake represents our marketing message. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the cake itself is the marketing message. Now, guess what? We're going to decorate the cake.
Mm-hmm.
Lexi, would you agree with me that how we decorate the cake for a toddler is going to be very different than decorating the cake for my mom's 70th birthday?
Yes.
It's going to look very different, right?
Unless she likes dinosaurs, but yes.
Exactly. No, hers is having flowers on it.
Okay, there you go.
But the thing is, Lexi, the cake is exactly the same. It's how we present the cake that's going to be different. Mm-hmm. And I'll use an example. So in our marketing, the content is the cake. Mm-hmm. The words we use to describe it will be different. Mm-hmm. Okay, but we will be saying the exact same thing. Now, I'm going to give you an example of that in real life where the words will change. Okay. Have you ever heard the term elevator pitch?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you'll notice that the word elevator pitch really connects with people who have a corporate background. Mm-hmm. When working with healers and, people who are dealing with spirituality, they're more heart-centered entrepreneurs. The word elevator pitch is really harsh.
Yes.
Would you agree with me on that?
Yes, definitely.
You'll notice I don't say elevator pitch unless it's this example, right? I call it the 60-second introduction.
Yes.
But guess what? They're exactly the same. But the words I use to present it are different. That's why it's so important to understand who you're speaking to in your message.
Definitely, because again, as soon as you say elevator pitch, I can feel how people would be just turned off, like, oh, this is going to feel like a right, totally different. And again, it's that our words have power, and to be very deliberate. And again, with you guiding us of, is this really the word we want to use here? Or, let's brainstorm for even that. Let's brainstorm. What are different words for this? Let's break out the thesaurus. Let's do what we need to do. But what are some different ways that we could explain this? Because even a slight change in a word can make a huge impact and a huge difference in where your business is going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why for me, it's about building a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are there to help and support each other in a really safe environment, to be able to run these ideas by other people and say, hey, does this word resonate with you? Or I've had clients who are in the medical field, and and then this word is like really, really, really long that I can't pronounce.
Yes.
And I'm sitting here going, well, if I can't pronounce it, we shouldn't be using it in marketing content.
True, right? Very true.
Unless you are marketing to doctors.
Yes. Yeah. And again, that's knowing your market, knowing your client, knowing who you want to reach. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. That's how important it is to understand who your ideal person, who are you speaking to?
Right.
Who do you want to attract?
And so, like, it makes me think too, Nikki, in terms of, you mentioned that you work with smaller businesses, with people who are small business. In terms of, you mentioned, like, of course, people in the fitness industry, you've worked with many of them, different. Can you give us a bit more in terms of what kind of businesses? I mean, to me, I hear, knowing you, I think, well, you help everybody, like in terms of anybody who wants to get into, who has a small business or wants to improve or figure out how they want it to look. But can you tell me a bit more about some of the different types of businesses or that you help?
Well, I work a lot with health professionals. And one of the reasons I like to work with health professionals is they've got an incredible gift. They just don't understand how to articulate it to people, what their gift can do for them. So I do work with a lot of health professionals, anybody who helps with the well-being, like coaches. I also work with a lot of service providers. Now, when I say service providers, they could be, in professional fields like accountants and lawyers, and they provide a service. So anybody who really provides a service is and especially if they're in a competitive field, is how do you differentiate yourself from everyone else, and how do you articulate what you do that will naturally attract the type of people that you want to work with.
Right.
So it's really more the service-based industries. Anybody who, like putting together coaching programs, or, like what you do in, fitness programs, creating a fitness program, right? Or a nutritionist, putting together a meal planning, there's a lot of all of that for me is under the health and wellness umbrella. And I do work with a lot of health and wellness people because I think there's an absolute need for those services.
Yes.
And there's plenty for everyone out there. And how do we find your niche to be able to shine in the world, right?
And I think that you bring up another great point, is that I think sometimes we when we're starting off our business journey, we think, oh, it's the market's saturated. There's no way. They're like, why would I do this? What's the point? But as you said, there's plenty enough for everyone. And again, everyone else isn't you. So you've got your own personal, as a business owner, you've got your own personal flair and way of doing things. And I think that that's the thing. When I know when I'm looking, I'm sure you do the same, when I'm looking for people I want to work with, or, you know, a doctor I want to go see, or a therapist or practitioner, I want to, for me, it's very much about how I feel and my connection to them. And so I think that that's so important, because we don't connect with everyone. And instead of looking at it as, oh, it's oversaturated, it's not going to work, instead of changing that perspective and that mindset to, yeah, but they're not me and I'm not them. So we might have the same training or skills. However, we may offer it in a very different way. And we don't live the same experience. We have got different experiences that we can bring into our practices, our businesses as well. And I think that that's such an important thing to remember too. Yeah.
That, you know, Lexi, you bring up an excellent point there, because a lot of times my clients will come to me and they'll say, oh, I need a web designer. And I'll say, okay, what I want you to, here are some names of web designers. Here's 3.
Yes.
And I encourage them to contact all 3, because they might have different packages. They have, their pricing might be different. They might have specialties in certain areas. And well, when it comes to web design, they might have a style where one style, you might resonate with one style better than the other style, right? The other thing is, do you connect with the individual?
So
right?
important.
And
so
yes,
important.
You know, it's the same thing with fitness instructors, or, you know, nutritionists or coaches or lawyers or accountants. Do you resonate with them? Do you understand what they're saying? Do they, you know, do they explain things to you? Right? How many lawyers do you know out there who just like, oh, I have no idea what that person just said? Or an accountant, right? Is who is in your comfort level. So I highly encourage, when people are looking for service providers to help them, to interview more than one. Usually 3 is what I say, because it's a nice round number. Unless you don't find anything in those 3, then keep looking, right?
Right. And I think that's it too. You bring up a good point of, if you're not finding it in the 3, there's nothing saying you have to settle and thou shalt or thou must pick one of those. You can still continue. And I think, again, it's that you mentioned before about, this is a process, and we want to put in quality systems along the way. We don't just want to, you know, make it willy-nilly, for lack of a better word choice, because that's going to affect. It's like building a house. You want a good solid foundation. Otherwise, it's going to topple like a house of cards, right? So
yeah. Lexi, I'll share with you another example. Is some of the work that I do is I do consulting work with organizations to build teams. And one of the most common challenges that I hear with businesses that have more than one employee, they might have 3 to 10 employees, is they come to me and they say staff turnover.
yes.
Right? They say staff turnover, or I have this team and they are not performing the way I want them to perform, right? So typically what happens, or through my experience, is the business owner doesn't know how to interview.
Okay.
Right? They are hiring a person for the wrong reasons, and they're not looking at specific skill sets. Right. And so that's where I help guide them through the process. And when I understand what type of individual they're looking for, then I'll say, okay, these are the types of questions that you should be asking. Right. And I had one person say to me, I hired my assistant, and Nikki, I have to let them go. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, okay, so let's take a look at your interview process. What questions did you ask them? Was I supposed to? Because she spent the whole time explaining to them how great their company was.
Okay. Yeah.
right? And I'm sitting here going, no, this is an interview. You need to be asking them more questions than what they did ask, right? It's more than what's on the resume. And that's where, you know, I can guide people with that process. I have one of my clients had, she had an HR company that was working with her. The HR company was great at sending her candidates,
Right.
but didn't guide her through the process.
Okay.
And I guess I kind of derailed here, but the moral of the story is you don't need to rush into it, whether it's an employee or whether it's a contractor to help you with the service, like design your website or something like that.
Right.
Take the time to make sure you have the right fit, because it's costly if you don't. You might say, I can't afford to have this position empty. You can't afford to fill that position with the wrong person too.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, like that really, really resonates, right? Because again, it's more than just do you have a skill to perform this thing in terms of a worker? You want someone who's also got those, I mean, they call them soft skills. They're so important to me. They're like those are the top ones. If you don't know how to interact with people in a respectful way, if you don't know how to work as a team, yes, many of us like to work by ourselves. However, if you don't know how to interact, you're going to have to interact with people. If you don't know how to do that, that definitely will affect the business, as you said, right? So there's more than just, oh yeah, great, you've got these qualifications, but you don't take direction well, you don't negotiate or collaborate well with others. And I like what you said too about the programs that you run and having that collaborative environment, especially because people who are involved in your programs are people who want to have successful businesses. So they're not in there to, to shoot down other people and to make them feel horrible or kind of get them to quit the business. They're there to help people do better and make sure that their business is a success and is as successful as it can be by hitting the right market. Yeah, I love that component of that, Nikki, because I think sometimes people assume that they just need to get coaching and that's it, but there's from one person. But as you said, like, go find different people, source out 3, 4, whatever you need, and also interacting with other people, because again, they may have different experiences within business, but they've got some great ideas as people who aren't right in there and close to it. As you said, like, it's not your own baby, so you can be much more critical and see some of the things that may not work as well. Yeah.
And the other thing is people have different perspectives, because I'm sitting here going, social media, this is an interesting conversation, is I know a lot of people who specialize in social media. And they all, when I talk to them, they all specialize in a very different area of social media. Okay. So when somebody says social media, oh, I help you with your social media, and I'm sitting here going, okay, which part of it? Because I've spoken with so many, like even LinkedIn. I've had multiple people tell me, oh, I do, I help people with their LinkedIn. But when I talk to them, one focuses on this aspect of LinkedIn, another one focuses on a different aspect. And I'm like,
yes. And again, so, it's specific with the words, being precise, right?
Exactly. So it's really interesting, but be open, when you're talking to these people, listen to what they're saying. That's why I love Zoom instead of a phone call, because you can see the body language. Are they tensing up when you mention a certain word, right? Are they, loose and relaxed? Mind you, you're in an interview, so they might get nervous to begin with. Right. So you have to give them some slack on that, right? But your team is it's not just your employees, it's your contractors, that help you with what you do. If you're a brick and mortar, it could be even the person who delivers your packages is part of your team, right? So if you sell actual products, the courier represents you when they get to the other side, if they're delivering one of your packages, right?
I think that's it too, is that all of these mechanisms and pieces, right? That cog and the all of it together, right? And as you said, it's everybody who touches that business that represents and is part of that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot, I'll have to admit, Lexi, there are a lot of different pieces when it comes to business.
Yeah.
It is a complex world. And, it's finding a community that can help support you through it. And, as somebody once said, like they read my book and they said, and they've been in business for a while. So they're an established business. And when they read when they read the book, they said, you know what, if I had that book when I started my business, it probably would have saved me over $100,000 in hard-learned lessons. So I'm like, yeah, why do we want to make those mistakes if somebody else has already made them? I can learn from
Definitely, right? And I feel like your book is definitely putting the pieces together is definitely a playbook, right? It's a really good I was gonna say suggestions. That's not really a match for words right now, but gives you some great things to consider.
I call it a resource guide.
Thank you. That's it. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're not going to learn how to do sales from my book, but you're going to know that is one of the skill sets that is very important to an entrepreneur.
Excellent.
And this is why, right? Go get a book on how to do sales.
Right. Exactly.
That's why I call it a resource guide.
It's fantastic. And Nikki, I so appreciate you coming on and chatting with us, and we'll definitely be sure to tag Nikki's book in the link to the show, as well as where you can contact Nikki if you've got questions or want to reach out and are looking for some assistance. I'm sure Nikki would be more than happy to help you with that, with your needs. Any closing remarks? Anything else you'd like to leave us with before we sign off?
Can I lead them to my website in case they want more information?
Please do.
Okay. My website is NCP, as in Nikki Chang Paulus, my initials, NCP, Nikki Charlie Peter, consulting.net. And if you go to the website, ncpconsulting.net, you will be able to download 101 marketing ideas to get more sales.
Nice.
So if you're looking for different ways to promote your business, there are over 101 ideas in that download.
Love it. And again, I'll make sure that we link that into the show notes so that way people can access and find Nikki. And also, you've got a newsletter that's associated with your site as well, correct? Because I subscribe to the newsletter. I get the newsletter, so get to hear from Nikki. So there's also, you can subscribe to the newsletter, find different ways to contact Nikki, and I'll be sure, as I mentioned, to put that in our notes too.
Well, thank you very much, Lexi.
This has been fabulous. And I'm sure, if you've got questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm sure I will chat with Nikki and see if we can get her to come back again. Thank you so much for your time. This was a really great conversation. And I can't wait to hear what people have to say about you and about our conversation and what we chatted about. So,
well, thank you for having me, Lexi.
You are very welcome. So everybody, thank you so much. We'll chat with you again soon. Remember, I will post some extra info in our meeting. I'll post some extra meeting notes rather. And until the next time.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.